And I'm looking forward to this. Thank you, everybody, for doing this. And like everybody, Stephen, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you all.
So welcome to our Horror Writers Association Halloween in July event. This is going to be a really fun time where we're going to go through, hear some really great authors read from their books. Then we're going to do a collaborative horror story episode. We're going to create live an impromptu horror story. And then I have a free takeaway for all of you, a party game that is similar to the collaborative game that you're going to hear us play. And you can play that with up to 6 crazy characters, Gothic kind of style, in your own home. So without further ado here, here's the order of terror for this event. First, we'll have those 3 horror writer readings. Then we'll do the collaborative storytelling, like I said, and a free party game. So let's get started. Our first reader is Natalie Damore. And Natalie is the author of Late Night Bites. She's a mom by day, but in the evening, she's a mystery thriller suspense writer at night. So Natalie, can you take us away with your first reading? Your reading, and tell us a little bit about your book or what you're reading.
So I'm working on a new project. It's called Dead Man's Hand. It's about 2 medical examiners that are basically investigating a John Doe. And as they're continuing through their exam, their autopsy, things start going bump in the night and they have to figure out what's been going on. And so I've got a little taste of what's going to be going on. So, all right, boys, ante up. The group tossed in their chips and prepared to take one more look at their hands. The air became thick and heavy, sweat beading on their foreheads. The dealer looked at all the players, smirking slightly under his mustache. He could tell who was bluffing and who was the winner. Call 'em. 3 players showed their hands, 18, 15, and 17. Not bad, gentlemen, not bad at all. He looked at the last player who had just cashed in his last chip. His skin was pale, his hands tremored as he peered over to the dealer. Your turn, sir. The last player exhaled as he showed his hand. 21. The other card players cried out, slamming the table and throwing their drinks around. The lucky winner sighed with relief and smiled softly at the dealer. The dealer smiled back, got up from his chair, cleared his hands, and walked away from the table. The other players glared at the evening's winner. You son of a bitch. You cheated. You had to have cheated. The men looked at each other, their silent agreement echoing loudly between them. They grabbed the winner and proceeded to beat him. With every hit, the man curled into a ball, trying to guard himself. Eventually, he succumbed to his injuries. The other players grabbed the money and placed it in their pockets. One of the men looked at the winner's cards. He picked them up, looked at them from to back, and then back at the other cards. Guys, what type of hand did he have again? The other 2 looked at each other confused. The bastard had blackjack. Why? The man showed the others the winning hand, a 9 of clubs and a 4 of spades. Are you kidding me right now? That son of a bitch was a loser? That can't be. The dealer called it a 21. Well, maybe that son of a bitch flunked out of school. Come on, let's just get out of here. The men fled the scene, leaving the last player behind. The dealer coming back out of the shadows, looking down on him. His eyes flickered a serpentine color. Please, help. The dealer smirked. He whispered in the man's ear as he took his last breath. The dealer whistled as he disappeared back into the shadows. And that's the first part.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Natalie. And that's part of your next book that you're going to be releasing soon,
Yes.
or you're working on?
Yes.
And the name of the book is?
Dead Man's Hand.
Awesome. Thank you. Big round of applause. That was awesome. I loved it. Can't wait to see what happens in that. Very good. And now we have Mark Geyer, who is former freelancer. He lives in upstate New York. He's the author of Nostalgiamares, Phantom Delivery. Oh, awesome. Retro horror. I love it. And Mark, you're going to read from us today. He's a HWA member and a dedicated Doctor Who fan for sure. So, Mark, tell us a little bit about what you're going to read, and can't wait to hear it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Stephen. I'm going to read from my book, Phantom Delivery. It's good. It's from about halfway through the book. The concept of the book is that a woman in her late 30s who's really unhappy with her life wakes up in the fictional world of Hellebore, which is from a book series, a teen horror book series she loved growing up called Dead Mares. And she's in the mind and body of the main character from the very first book, named Patricia. And she thinks that this is a dream come true because she can just live in this retro world where she loves all the pop culture and she loves this small town, but then things start to change, and she's being hunted by this entity called the Phantom Driver, who's a pizza delivery man with a shadowy face that she can't quite place who it is. And this comes from about halfway through the book, just before things start to take a really negative turn for poor Harper. But this is a dream she has. I'm reading this because it requires the least amount of context. Okay. She dreamed of water. Dark and bottomless water swallowed her. Above was the shimmering, rippling surface that distorted the night world where lightning flashed. Harper could see the outline of trees. Below were the dimming and flickering taillights of a sinking car. The current formed by the descending vehicle gripped her, pulling her down with it. Kicking and pulling, she tried to propel herself up, but her muscles were tired and beginning to burn despite the freezing temperature enveloping her. A certainty came to her, as if rising from the devouring abyss. This is just a dream. If I sink, I'll wake up. She accepted this statement as fact, but was too frightened of the narrow possibility that she might be wrong. What if she stopped swimming, sank, and disappeared altogether? The world above made sense. It was familiar and comforting to her, despite its many dangers. The mystery below was dark and unknown, and she didn't think she had the strength to face it. Lightning flashed. There was a bridge emerging from the trees and stretching across the water. Pulling from inner reserves, she gave swimming everything and felt herself pass through the surface. Drawing in as much air as possible, lightning struck again, and her breath caught in her throat. A man was standing on the bridge. It was the Phantom Driver, and he was laughing. And that's that.
Ooh, awesome. I love the descriptive nature of that. That's so good.
Thank you.
And the surreal kind of, you're not sure what's going to happen. That entire book is magic. I love it. So thank you for
Thank you
reading
so
from
much,
that.
Steve.
Yeah, very good. Awesome. And now for our next spooky story here, Nikki DeKeuster, who is author of the Bittersweet Empathy horror series. She's a developmental editor at Phoenix Feather Edits, and she is a professional astrologer at Phoenix Rose Astrology. So with no further ado here, Nikki, tell us about what you're going to read.
Hello, Stephen. Thank you for having me. And this is going to be a very fun, strange, scary event. So I appreciate being invited. And I am going to read an excerpt from my second book in the Bittersweet Empathy series that I'm currently working on. Much like Mark, I had to figure out a place that was good to come in because there's so much context that comes with a second novel, you know. So I do need a little bit of explaining. The girl in here has empathetic and the powers to be able to drain people's souls. So this goes into a little bit of the story of how that comes to be. And the second one picks up where she's exploring just what this is and why and pushing the limits of it, I guess. Can you guys hear me okay? I switched microphones.
Very good. You sound clear.
All right, good. Okay, so this is from the beginning of the second book, tentatively titled Freak Like Me, Chapter 1. They lied. They didn't know it yet. They didn't mean to, but they lied. They always lied. How could they do anything else? Are you aware of what I'm about to do to you? I asked, though the nervous terror ping-ponging through her system gave me some idea what her answer would be. Yes, she said. The tips of her fingers, nails chewed to shredded stubs, wrapped against the metal armrest. All I could see of her was her well-defined arm, sticking through a hole in the concrete barrier that separated us. Why concrete? I don't know. Maybe I was giving off radiation and they hadn't told me yet. Maybe they thought I might explode. Maybe they didn't want to see the look of horror seared onto her face. As if I could get it off my soul. Still, if that were the case, it would be a mercy, and I'd take it. Mercy is too often in short supply. I need to hear you say that first person / victim, or had it been the second? I hadn't been so sure he really knew what he'd look for. Now I had to ask for what was left of my sanity. Oh, they'd said he understood, but somehow I still wasn't sleeping at night. I hadn't slept well since arriving at the mentor program weeks ago. Months ago. Shit. How long had it been? The last few nights had been a boiling sea of incoherent nightmares. The kind that would wake the neighbors if we weren't in a facility 8 miles from Detroit. The neighbors here only blinked at me. Maybe a nurse would come in with her white shoes and a slew of questions that I'd only catch snippets of, as if she was shouting through an underwater megaphone. What changed, you asked? The last few nights, focus had shifted to ripping the souls out of people's bodies. Nightmares seemed getting better. I'm getting a heck of a feedback. Is that me?
Yeah, I do hear that too.
Oh, I don't.
A little bit of a feedback.
That was weird. Sorry, I don't know.
Well, I hear your story and I immediately know who it's from. You have such a distinctive voice with redirects and subtext to the max. I love that. I love your stories. So thank you very much. And the name of the book again, or at least the series, is the Bittersweet Empathy series,
Yep.
Right?
Bittersweet Empathy.
And that, yeah.
And that's the very
Awesome.
beginning of book 2. So
Ooh. A soul-sucking story there.
yes. What is
Thank
going
you.
on, Carson? He doesn't still completely understand. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yay. Awesome. Boo. From it, not a bad thing. A boo. Ooh. Okay. So thank you. That was an awesome read. So what are we going to do next is we're going to move into the second stage of terror here. And we're going to hear these 3 authors tell us some stories collaboratively. They're going to listen to each other, tell a story, and then build on that. Each one taking about 4 minutes or so, like you just heard their excerpt, set up a scene. And they're going to use a game that I designed called Miasma Shadows of Medina, a very gothic light version of it, so we can do this quickly. And the story is going to start off with a certain episode where the moon, it's evening, the moon is rising, and there's some ancestral spirits that are awakening. a vampire actually stalks the halls and could be among the people there. He's an uninvited guest, and but each character is drawn to this evil in the castle by either blood, by desire, or by dark invitation. And so we're going to see what this medieval castle has in store for these characters. So the cast of the story is going to be Elizabeth Medina. She's the wife, very alluring, sensual lady who is desperately wanting to hold her position and power within Spain. We have Lord Medina, who is a very kind person, but he's haunted by the torture of heretics that he witnessed as a young child under his father's tutelage or torture. And then we have the resident doctor who's in the area too, a wealthy doctor who is very specialized in remedies and potions, and he has access to the library and helps with a lot of ailments, or maybe he causes them. We don't know at this point. So that's the story, the characters, and then some of the opening scenes are going to be the bedrooms where Nicholas and the Lord and Lady of the castle are going to be residing, and then we have the dungeon where it's an active prison dungeon, so there's people in this dungeon. It's not just a dungeon. And the doctor may be tending to people who are sick there, or maybe he's experimenting on them. We'll find out. And so the game will be played where the players will each have 6 story cards. They'll get 3 per turn, and then they're going to take those 3 story cards and they're going to use them to weave a tale of terror. They'll have location cards, and they can move people anywhere they want to any room. There's no restrictions, but they'll be at least having these location cards. And we're going to do 2 complete rounds, meaning each of our spirit guide players, which are controlling these characters, will be doing 2 turns. And normally the game is like 4 or 5, depending. But I wanted to give you a taste of how fun this really is. So our spirit guide number 1 is our first author. That's Natalie. Spirit guide number 2 is Mark, and 3 is Nikki. So that's how we're going to get started. So this is a listing of all of the characters that they could have picked from, and other secondary characters if they want to, like cooks, or maybe the vampire himself or herself, right? Or maybe one of them is a vampire. We don't know yet, or maybe that's just a ruse. And then there's locations. I mentioned the bedroom and the dungeon, but there's a crypt, there's a dining hall, there's a chapel, and library. So this helps to set an incomplete stage for a playground, a sandbox for a gothic horror narrative that they're going to create. And with no further ado, we're going to start with our first spirit guide, Natalie Damore. And these are the 3 story cards that she has. And she's going to take about 4 minutes to give us a story. So go for it.
Sorry, I just realized that my microphone was still on.
No problem.
All right. So my character was Elizabeth Medina, and so this is her story. Elizabeth Medina sat in front of her vanity, her makeup heavily running down her face, her eyes red from crying. She looked over her letters from her family. She wiped the tears and breathed heavily. Madame, Elizabeth spun around and saw her maid waiting patiently. Are you all right? Elizabeth nodded. Just reading from my family. My family spent my entire life training me to be the lady of the house. I fear he's already having an affair. I'm afraid he'll have me killed and have me replaced just as easily. The maid held Elizabeth tight. Well, all will be well. There is someone who can help tonight. Elizabeth sent her maid for the stranger. Midnight came and a chap came to the window. Elizabeth examined the window but saw no one but smoke. She opened the window and the room filled with a thick air of mahogany and rot. A man came out of the shadows and greeted him. I hear you needed help, he says. She nodded her head very lightly, whimpering, yes. He said, I can help you, but only for a small price. She nodded her head and said anything. She's like, I just want to be with my family in Spain. He smiled softly and nodded. He goes, I can help with that. He took her into her arms and caressed her. He says, this will only hurt for a moment, but it'll all be all right. She went limp in his arms, and she felt a sting go into her veins and her neck. Her blood ran cold, then hot, and then she felt nothing. She stared at the man whose eyes went pale blue, and he said, now will be your time. She went limp, and then death, and then nothing. She breathed into her lungs and let out a giant exhale. Her senses stung, and everything was bright. Welcome to your new life, Madame Bathory. Next.
Ooh, that was very good. Awesome. Loved it. All right. So Mark's turn. He has Nicholas Medina, and these are the cards that he has.
So I have a question, Steve.
Yeah.
The demon card. You explained it before, but I'm not quite sure. Could you elaborate a little bit more on what that card means?
Sure. So the demon card is something that you can play on any character, and you can pick anything on it. You can see it says self-hatred, addictions, dangerous behavior, and even possession. So you got full reign on this one. It's just basically somebody who becomes influenced by a demon, and you can pick anything on there, and it can be any character. Doesn't have.
So my main character for the scene is Nicholas, who's the kind lord of the castle, right? And
That's right.
By what he saw as a child, and so in this scene he's terrified by some outcome or event, right? Something happened. He's terrified of it, and there's a character who may be possessed by a demon. Is that right? Gotcha. And I'm sorry, as I said before, Stephen, it was a chaotic week. I'm getting caught up here in real time.
No problem. That's why it's impromptu. This would be just how it would happen if you got dealt these cards just a minute or two before. So
exactly. So I'm just gonna go off of what my instincts are. Now, do I choose a location? I'm sorry.
You were initially in the bedrooms.
Initially in the bedrooms. Okay. And I can move to locations?
You can move anywhere you want.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I'm just trying to
keep there's no event. You can go anywhere you want. He could be in the library or wherever, so you can go wherever you want.
My last question. The character we just saw.
That's his wife.
That's his wife. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
All right. Okay, so I'm just going to start and we'll see where it goes. All right. So Nicholas Medina, he's in the bedroom. It's getting late. The moon is a little fatter and wider and brighter than he's used to. And not that he's used to, than he's comfortable with, I should say. Because they remind him of, he calls it a hungry moon, because when he was a child, and his father, the old Lord Medina, who used to look over the castle, when he used to torture the heretics who dare speak out against him and his beliefs, he thought the moon would get bigger the louder they screamed. And so that's why he called it the hungry moon. And the hungry moon makes him very uneasy. And he noticed that his wife is over there sitting by her vanity, looking upset. He knows he probably should talk to her. Something's bothering her. But he can't bring himself to do it on a night like this. And as he leaves the room, without a word, to his spouse. He decides, well, there's nothing better to do on a hungry moon than to feed yourself. And so he goes to the dining hall. The dining hall is this huge room with all the relics of his family's past. He's surrounded by the successes of his forefathers. And he sits there alone, and a servant brings him some food, something simple. And he's realizing that as he eats, he's trying to just focus on the food, but he's starting to think about some of the conversations he's had of late with someone. He's with this exact servant, because sometimes the servant seems just like a regular obedient servant. Other times they look at them like they know something. And Nicholas is eating, and he hears the servant say, "There's one more dish you would like, isn't there?" And he says, "No, that's all, thank you." And then the servant sits down across from him and says, "No, really, I think there's something else you were hoping for." And he looks at them, and their eyes are like a cold gray, sort of like the clouds that go over the moon. And it brings him right back to those moments as a kid watching the torture under the hungry moon. And he says, and he remembers that the reason he gets drawn to the dining hall on nights like tonight is because it was the deepest part of the castle he could go to and not hear the screaming. And the person across from him goes, you're living in a tomb trying to escape, but you're not going anywhere. I think there's something you want to ask of me. And Nicholas says, am I right in thinking you are a demon? And the peasant or the servant says, you could call me that, but I'm not. This is just a visage, a form, a vessel I take. But yes, more or less, I'm a demon. And he says, can you take me to hell? Because that's where I belong, for not speaking up and benefiting off of all the pain my family's caused. And the demon thinks about it, pushes its chair back, kind of starts like looking around inside their mouth, and says, I could do that, but that's what you want. I'm not so sure it's what you deserve. And he says, what do you mean? He goes, like you, I find myself feeling a bit peckish under the hungry moon. And he reveals these fangs in his mouth. And that's where I'll end it.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. Ooh, so creative. Love it. And now, Nikki with her 3 cards.
Okay, so Dr. Rambliss with the morally ambiguous event in the dungeon.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Why won't you just let me die? Dr. Rambliss looked at the man. Just a shell of who he had been. Gaunt, pasty, drained of his very essence. He took the potion in his hand, lifted the man's jaw forcefully, and poured it down his gullet, choking him to get him to choke it down. That's not my job. I took an oath. He stands up, watching as the vitality begins slowly returning to this hollow husk of a man. It would return over the course of the night. As he looked around, there were several others chained in the dungeon. It was dusty, fetid. The rats were having a field day on. Get! He looked at the wound on the man's foot, pulled out some bandage from his side satchel, and began. I'll get the exterminator down here right away. The man groaned at him. There are, what, 7 of them now in the dungeon? That was more than he usually had in a year to care for. And to keep them alive under such conditions, only to see them drained. It was new. It was something Anna had insisted on recently. And he couldn't say no to Anna. So, but this was his job, and he would do it to the best of his ability. Still, he bandaged the man up, turned and fled from the dungeon into the much more pleasant atmosphere of his crypt. There he lingered, his hand on one of the crypt doors for a time. The things he did for Anna without question. He shook his head. Eyes tearing up. And he jolted open the door next to the crypt that he had been touching. Inside were various mosses, ingredients, things that thrived within the dark. And he started collecting them. He had a potion to make. He often made potions that didn't exactly heal. In fact, this one was aimed right for the king. Anna wanted to take him out. But he had a job to do. And he loved her. And maybe he could be king. So, might not be so bad. Still, Queen had a lot of trouble getting pregnant, in no small part thanks to the things that he had been feeding her over time. But the king wouldn't just kill her because he actually loved her, so that plan hadn't quite worked out. And he takes another stop at the crypt, starts to open it, closes it, being brought back to a time when the queen actually delivered a child. But thanks to his quick thinking, the child was stillborn. It had devastated her. And Anna had been so relieved that the sex had been devastatingly good for the next 2 weeks. We all have our demons.
Oh man. Very good. This is such a treat. Very good. So now we go back to Natalie for her second and last turn. And these are the cards that she was dealt.
Okay. So I'm still using Elizabeth Medina. And this picks up just months after the first turn. So hold on one second. Elizabeth reclined in the bath, her ivory skin glimmering in the candlelight. A large gust of wind greeted her. Hello, Malik. Malik's eyes burned red. What have you done? Elizabeth shrugged. I don't know what you mean. Malik splashed the bloody bath water onto her. You know what you've done. Elizabeth wiped the water from her face and climbed out. Oh, you mean the girls. I was hungry. You defiled the law of vampire. Now you must pay. We had a deal. You promised I would always be in Spain with my family. Malik nodded. He goes, I did promise that. Malik opened the doors and a group of men grabbed Elizabeth and dragged her to the streets. Two men held her arms across her chest while the third one had pierced an iron nail through her chest. Her entire body went into shock as she collapsed. Malik pushed her into a hole in the middle of the street as they started burying the cobblestones above her. You always wanted to be in Spain. Now you will spend the rest of your days in Spain. The men put more and more stones, her body feeling heavy and heavy, being crushed under the stones as they sealed her fate. As times go by, she sat in the darkness and listened to the cobblestones being traveled over by horseback, and then weird sounds of what she could not describe, but as we know as motors going over her, traveling, the voices of people cheering, laughing, and screaming in joy traveled through years of centuries for her, but she'll never be able to enjoy those times as she grew hungry.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. The future, the eternity of torture that she endures. Wow. Awesome. And we're back with Mark. And these are the three cards that he would be dealt and would continue his story or elaborate on someone else's, perhaps. Who knows?
For the mind control card, that can just be anybody.
Yes, it's either manipulation of some sort to get them to believe your way.
And any location. Any character. Character's flaws, quirks, or contradictions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so because, I guess I know him well enough, I'll stick with Nicholas. Okay. All right, let's see what I do. Okay, so this is going to pick up and like we don't know how long since the last scene, and it could be minutes, could be days, could be months, let's say, but for Nicholas, it's been moments. The servant came over, bit his neck, started drinking from him, but didn't kill him. In fact, brought him as close to death as possible. And then came to a point where Nicholas's body or soul left his body, could come back. And the servant says, well, there's a lot that happens in your castle that you're not aware of. Why don't you take a tour for a while? When in the spiritual state, it's sort of this between worlds existence, and Nicholas can see this servant for who they really are, or what they really are, and they're just sort of this constantly shivering massive shadow with these icy, not icy, but just very cold gray orbs in the center of its scratchy face. And it says there's a lot. It's like, not only did you stay silent when you were a child and your family was punishing those who didn't agree with their beliefs, but a lot has gone on in your manner that you haven't been paying attention to, and that you've also remained silent on. I know you think of yourself as a good man, but your silence has resulted in abominations beyond count. And if you don't believe me, just go ahead and see. So he goes and he sees the experiments going on. He sees family members, servants, having these affairs, treating each other horribly. He sees how his guards go through the alleys and just, pick peasant children to pick on and just throw off the side of a bridge or something. It's this really dark, cruel place. And he always thought that because he wasn't actively participating in anything, that he was a good man. And now he realizes that he's not. And if evil like this can exist right beneath his nose, he might as well lean into the fact that he's not a good man and make them all pay, or make them all feel terrible for what they've done. And he comes back and he says, I see what you mean. I see what's going on. I have some ideas. My wife wants to be in Spain and in power forever. She's done terrible things to make sure that happens. If I'm not mistaken, I think one of your brethren or one of your kin has devoured her and turned her into an unliving thing. And they said, correct. And he says, there's an alleyway that she always loved the sound of those cobblestones. I have an idea for that. And he shares his idea and then says, as for that doctor in the dungeon and his odd experiments and his forced operations and things and causing birth defects and all these horrible things, I've got an idea for him too, but I need my body back for that. And the demon says, I'm sorry, this is as far as you get. And the demon slits his body's throat and he bleeds out to haunt his own castle for the rest of whatever.
Wow. Wow, that's mine. That gets into your mind. Awesome. Thank you so much, Mark. Oh, wow. All right. And Nikki DeKeuster is going to bring us up on the final turn for our example, for our little taste of how this game plays. And these are her cards.
The demon watches the king bleed out. The mayhem ensues. Oh, the king is dead. The queen is missing. Nobody notices the demon that shifts into the servant girl. The servant girl that no one ever noticed. Walks quietly down the hall, past Anna, who acts bereaved. Oh, wailing at the side of her brother, as if she wasn't 2 seconds from killing him herself. She'd deal with Anna, this demon. She'd deal with Anna soon enough. Down past the wailing dungeons, the people who fed the vampires, who fed her plan beautifully. And there's Dr. Ramlis, dutifully mixing up his potion That won't be necessary, Doctor. The doctor turns, white as a sheet. You is it time? Yes, doctor. It's time. He goes over to that crypt, pulls it open. Inside, perfectly preserved, because Dr. Rambliss knows his stuff, is that stillborn child, been growing year after year. What he didn't expect was that her soul would be ripped apart by his particular concoction, that she would become separated for so long. It was only with the deaths of her parents that she can now merge back in with her body. So the demon lays back, forms back into the little girl, about 12 years old, pops up, eyes red, and then back into her normal, beautiful blue. She gets up from the crypt, walks up, back up into the chaos, and reveals herself as the daughter of the king and queen. And all of the kingdom is now, as it always should have been, rightfully hers. She has the doctor and Anna. They're both awake to find in the dungeon. She made a deal with her vampire friends. She would continue feeding them and rule with her blood-stained fist for all eternity.
Oh, yes.
There you
Awesome.
go.
Oh, a stillborn child that grows due to concoctions. Oh, wow. This is a gothic masterclass, I have to tell you all. So thank you. Big round of applause to each one of you and how you weave such wonderful stories. So thank you all. You guys are awesome. You got to read their books. You got to see. That's the twisted minds of horror. So thank you. I just wanted to quickly explain how this game evolved. It started off as a similar game, and you can see that there were character cards that really are flawed characters that are full of secrets, right? And you saw how each one of them revealed those secrets, activities that kind of spark your ideas for different sites of things that you want to do. This framework to help you create a story. So if you've never told a story before, or you have writer's block, and you want to help your own writing, you can use this framework, this Kalenia framework, to help do that with locations. You can make up your own locations. And then events in the longer game, there's actually events that occur, apparitions. So you don't have to be as creative as these folks. There are things that will happen if you stay linger too long in certain areas. And then there's narrative cards, which later on in the game allow you to, as you heard Nikki do, the seeking revenge once you have a certain amount of energy or you've built up your characters. And then A is for the artifacts. That they're also there. You can go on quest to find enchanted things. So that's kind of the idea behind it, and it's such a fun game. And I hope you get a chance to play it. You will, because as you can see, it does cover all aspects of the story structure. I think that's the other thing that's really fun about the game is there's certain cards that really play later to help you bring that climax of the game together. So if this interests you, if this piques your curiosity, visit my website and see if you'd like to become interested. It's not available yet. We're still playtesting this, but it will be available this summer. So stay tuned through Authortunities Hub and through my game website. And as you can see there, people can change, right? They can turn, and that's exactly what happens in the game. There's certain events where demons, you actually flip the cards over, and now you reveal who they truly are. There's exorcisms. There's all kinds of really unbelievable gothic twists that you can turn into it. And so how can you experience this in your own home? You can download the link that is below, and there is about a 6-page document that you can print and make these really adorable little handouts that you give to each one of your guests, and they will play one of the characters that we just saw. And it sets it up in the scene. There's going to be a party atmosphere, wine is flowing, different cards. Everyone gets unique cards, so it's going to be fun for these people. And that would be your own party game version of Miasma. I'd like to also recognize Angela Yuriko Smith, president of the Horror Writers Association. Thank you for sponsoring us through the Authortunities Hub as well. Angela, did you have anything you wanted to add?
No, just thank you to you guys for doing this, for supporting Halloween in July, for sharing the love of horror, and for sharing the horror, because we all love it. And that's about it. I love listening to these, and I love your game, Stephen. This is so awesome. Such an awesome tool for creativity and for creating story. So Thank you.
Thank you all very much, and have a very happy, haunted, fun, and horrifying July, Halloween in July, all of that mixed together. So thank you. Have a good day. Bye.